Lauren Southern, Lila Rose, Erudite. Yeah, Erudite's another one. Brittany Venti. Oh man, I got some things to say about Brittany. They are all gynocentrists who only care for what's best for women. Of course they are. They are all feminists. Every one of those girls that you mentioned are feminists.
Being called a feminist by the red pill manosphere sect of the internet, like Rollo Tomasi, is like being called a racist on Twitter. The word has really lost its power. But according to Rollo Tomasi, or should I say George, not only am I a feminist, but also a Christian.
They are conservatives, and we're good Orthodox Catholics, and we're good Bible worshiping, Bible reading Christians, and we go to Bible study.
I'm not a Christian, but it goes to show how much research he does on the people he so confidently speaks on. Rollo, or George, confidently accusing people of labels really confirms that everyone I don't like is a feminist is the new everyone I don't like is a racist. It's not meant to be taken seriously, and especially not from a discount Tom Likas.
Do you think that marriage is any good for women either? Statistics show that when the divorce happens, it's not particularly good for them.
Women have a lot more to gain from divorce. 90% of the custody goes to women, child custody. If you want to be with your kids, guess who's getting the kid? Not the guys, not you. Bottom line. And then guys are going to be paying that child support. And what is alimony? And why, or now they changed the name of it to spousal support. Why are we paying that? What for what?
There's no real accountability, particularly when it's like no fault divorce. And of course, it's always in the woman's favor, especially if she has kids, there's child support, there's alimony.
But you don't have to take my word for it, because George himself lists Tom Likas as his inspiration for his ideology on women and dating.
Really, back in 2001, I started listening to a terrestrial radio show host named Tom Likas, who I really liked at the time, and Friends and Wives
And George's inspiration, Tom Likas, self-describes as a feminist because it helps him get laid without having to commit or have children. I'm a hardcore feminist. This is why I never buy dinner for women, help pay their bills, or help raise their children from other guys. Women are equal. Looking forward to the next gal who will be paying for dinner. I love equality. God, he's such a dusty. It's kind of ironic though, isn't it? George has cultivated an internet following on the part of the internet where he is self-proclaimed to be the father of. This internet ghetto is referred to as the red pill manosphere.
I am not red pill adjacent. I am in the red pill. I am the father of the red pill.
You call yourself the Godfather of the red pill.
I call myself the Godfather of the manosphere, okay? Other people have called me that.
Okay, great. That's very...
Do you understand?
Okay.
George saves men from those evil women and is literally saving their lives.
And so when we see that happen and we see guys are like, yeah, oh man, women are really fucked up. And when we look at that, that's sensational. What we don't look at is the success stories where guys go, you know what? I was going to kill myself. And now I decided not to, because now I have accurate information because I'm red pill aware right now.
The red pill manosphere is infamous for their bad takes on women in dating, such as Modern Life Dating or MLD's take on how you should endure physical harm from your spouse.
If there's someone that's very, very young and goes into a marriage and has kids when they're like 18, 19, 20, a year into the relationship, it gets really, really abusive. If it would happen, what would you recommend for those people? Would they divorce, or do you want them to keep going in the relationship?
Keep going. You can't divorce, and that's not a real thing.
Even though it might be like physically abusive?
You gotta endure.
Okay,
endure.
And of course, this is somebody that George is friends with.
But I know that they've been trying to, like, they've been coming for everybody recently. They've been going after MLD is easy. He's too easy. Like I love John, but he's easy to get.
Not only is George a Tom Likas wannabe, but even in the said red pill community he claims to have cultivated, he's known as a wannabe cool kid.
What do you think the beef that Rollo has with Tate?
Earlier on, before Tate was huge, Rollo and Tate were doing some podcasts together. Yeah. And once Tate didn't rock up, he's a busy guy, Rollo was so upset and so emotional. What I saw in Rollo was the geeky kid who was allowed to hang out with the cool kids, but then the cool kids snubbed him. Rollo was so upset. And that's what you see right there. You see a geeky kid who's cool now, but of course Tate's cooler. All these people who are looking at him as the godfather of Red Pill, if that is your role model, someone who's acting in a feminine frame, who's basically a geeky nobody who's written a book and talks a lot. That's an individual without any sort of stoicism, without any masculine values.
George will take every opportunity he can to humble brag, usually by name dropping or saying that other people are name dropping him.
Adam's known who I am for a long time. People have dropped my name on his show several times. I know that Ethan Klein clearly knows who I am. I know a lot of people who, like the guys in the guys on Flagrant 2. They know my name as well.
His self-importance comes from other people validating him, and it shows.
I think what's interesting is, like, whenever I get interviewed and people try to pretend like they know what they're talking about me, and they'll go, "You're the author of The Rational Male, right?" Yeah, all 5 books. At least do me the courtesy and say, you know what? We know that you have 5 books.
Don't you know I created the red pill? How do you not know who I am?
I've been doing this for 20 freaking years. But people don't, they'll quote me, or they'll use terminology that they've heard from my book or something I said at some point that somebody else, third party might have said, but they don't realize where it came from. And the reason for that is because I don't sell prescriptions. If I was like Tony Robbins and said, "Hey guys, let's all, feel better about ourselves and put ourselves first," that sells tickets to, sell out arenas.
Why do you not know who I am? I should be famous. I'm the OG. Me.
That's out of my 4th book, which nobody seems to want to read.
Well, why are people buying my books even though I leave it under the reply of every tweet? He's really upset about not being popular like those other red pill guys who do sensationalist stuff unlike him. He wants to be famous for creating a community that uses woke feminist tactics like censorship. For example, Fresh and Fit copy striking AbaNPreach, or JustPearlyThings copy striking Sarah Garvey. Or how George says that he will nuke your platform if you invite someone on that he personally does not like.
You spring somebody on me, expect me to say words on your show that will get you banned from YouTube. I will tell you that right now. Expect me to say that. Expect me to start talking about the Germans.
Instead of having an absolute melty, why don't you just leave? George is like 50 years old threatening to have a melty. He's essentially threatening to take your income away and go off the rails because you made him look bad. Personally, I would think twice before having him on a show and risking my livelihood. This internet ghetto is also renowned for expressing their disdain for the other gender and not being wanted by them. It's kind of like when woke feminists say that if you don't date them, you're XYZ phobic, even if you personally just find them unattractive. Or in the red pill manosphere's case, it's women having too high standards and not wanting to endure their personalities.
Endure.
Oh, you wouldn't want to be with someone like that? I'm shocked. The manosphere gives young boys and men dating advice, sometimes under the guise of self-improvement, and usually it's something about how to attract women.
Show of hands if you're single. Okay. Now, show of hands if you want to do the Myron approach and have multiple wives. Okay. Now,
motherfuckers who can't get one girl want to have multiple.
The absolute degeneracy and high standards that they claim to hate about feminism is absolutely rampant in these parts. And worst of all, the red pill manosphere has co-opted my favorite movie, The Matrix. Which is why criticizing them is met with their response of, "Everyone I don't like is part of the Matrix." Even if you're very vocal on opposing woke ideology, they don't really care. It's very much a us versus them mentality. You're either with them or you're against them.
That's the problem. You want to fight against the Matrix? Don't look at this guy. Look at the Hollywood moguls who are telling you that Margot Robbie should be Barbie.
In this video, George talks about Margot Robbie being casted as Barbie and how she is too old to play Barbie, and how her being 32 years old in the film as opposed to 25 is literally the same thing as race swapping a character.
If you had a problem with miscasting of, let's see, a black woman as what, Marie Antoinette? I'm trying to think of some other, like, where we're doing like sort of like either gender swaps or we're doing like racial swaps. If you have a problem with that, you should have a problem with Margot Robbie as well.
And if you don't view her being 32 as opposed to 25 as literally being the same as a race swap, well, then you're kicked out of the club.
Because I got all these guys who were formerly red pill, now suddenly they're playing sneaky fucker game. The same game that they criticize other male feminists. You're basically a male feminist right now, guys. How dare you? You're a disgrace to the manosphere. You're a disgrace to the, give me their badge. Turn in your man card.
The redheaded libertarian ran a poll on if 25-year-old Margot Robbie is hotter or 33-year-old Margot Robbie is hotter. So I did an identical poll, except for one thing. I switched the photos, and it turns out that people can't tell the difference. Out of over 4,000 votes, 67.5% of voters voted for 25-year-old Margot Robbie, which was actually 33-year-old Margot Robbie. Redheaded Libertarians poll, which had 11,000 votes, had almost identical results to my poll, where 66.9% of voters voted that 33-year-old Margot Robbie was hotter. In both instances, they voted 33-year-old Margot Robbie as more attractive. But I guess they're all feminists too, right? This whole situation reminds me of that one subreddit where people post photos of themselves to be rated on how attractive they are. And when beautiful women are posted, the Redditors have to humble them. You could be a fallen angel and they'll be like, 4 out of 10. And the moderators of this subreddit will literally ban people for giving too high of a rating. You gave an attractive girl a 7 out of 10? You better watch your step, bud. They're trying to humble these women because by doing that, they personally don't have to self-improve to get to the woman's level. They can instead bring her down to their own level. And that same sentiment is what I get from the manosphere as well. If I were a Red Pill Manosphere podcaster, I'd probably say something like, these modern men are defeminizing women. They expect to get hot women out of their league, go 50-50 with them, and then expect to get 3 wives when they can't even pay for the meal of 1. What makes you, a balding, broke, fat loser, think that they deserve that? You think that you deserve 3 hot women when you can't even afford to pay for dinner? These modern men are absolutely delusional. Sprinkle, sprinkle. A lot of you really need to wash your ass, which is why today's video is sponsored by Reed Street Soap. You deserve a soap that looks as good as it smells. They carry beautiful soaps for men, women, as well as unisex. They are a small business and recently upgraded their formula with cleaner ingredients, all of which are listed right there for you to see. In honor of Barbie, they're running a PINKOUT sale, so if you buy 2 bars of soap, you get 1 for free by using the code PINKOUT. A new batch of Bimbo bars that I helped design the look of and smell of are available for the PINKOUT promotion, as well as the Flower Power soap that I also helped design. They smell like sweet strawberries and fresh flowers. Everyone needs soap. Visit reedstreetsoap.com to become Bimbo. Now back to the video. George's delusion knows no bounds. He thinks he's recognized as Father Red Pill like Patrice O'Neal, but in reality, it's not George's photos that people have on their walls and tables. Considering that George charges $1,000 to speak to him one-on-one, you would think that people dedicated shrines to this guy. I mean, he does act like a cult leader.
I usually charge about $1,000 an hour for my one-on-one stuff. I'll just tell you that right now. If you say, hey, I want a one-on-one with you, Rollo, just understand it's going to be about $1,000 an hour, because that's what my time is worth these days. And I'll be happy to analyze your situation and give you a more detailed thing. But
yeah, he's helping men all right. He's helping them empty their wallets. Has anybody actually been desperate enough to spend $1,000 for an hour of his time? OnlyFans girls on Red Pill podcast get humbled for overvaluing themselves all the time for asking for guys that make 6 figures. George is way more delusional than those girls. For perspective, in America, an average therapist makes like $90 to $150 an hour. A really good one might make like $250. So you're telling me that George is worth 4 times more than a good therapist is. But you know what? Maybe I'm just not Red Pill aware enough.
Because I'm Red Pill aware right now.
You would think with how much he charges, he wouldn't feel the need to lie for clicks. Like how he lied about Jordan Peterson's daughter, Michaela Peterson. Michaela confronts George on her podcast about how he read a Twitter thread about her with a list of rumors that he didn't bother to fact check before making judgments and statements about it on his stream.
So in your video, you said, oh, she brought her dad to Russia, and then while he was in the hospital, went off and, partied with Andrew Tate, which wasn't right because that was 3 months earlier. I just wanted to clarify that.
Well, that's the information that I had available to me.
And he didn't say sorry to her. He was just kind of like, oh well. And that lack of accountability shows up again when Michaela Peterson confronts him about him comparing her to Casey Anthony.
And so I stopped taking birth control just in case it was. But yeah, I did stop taking it, and that ended up resulting in Scarlett, who I'm thrilled to have, but it definitely put a bit of a kibosh on the direction I thought my life was going to take. However, it ended up not being a negative thing. It ended up being a positive thing, but it was scary.
Put a kibosh on my personal life. Sound like killed a party? Sure does to me.
I didn't like the comparison that you made between me and Casey Anthony, who murdered her kid and then put her in the trunk so that she could go party. I thought that was not very nice.
And what's his justification of lying about her and misrepresenting her? Well, it gets clicks.
I'm not saying that that's what you wanted to do. Okay. I'm just using Casey Anthony as one prime example of that. I used other examples as well.
Well, the thumbnail did have me. And I do thank you for picking a good picture of me, by the way, but it did have me and then Kill to Party.
Well, let me explain to you the dynamics of thumbnail creation, which you maybe already know. But when you put people's face on there, when you put people's recognizable faces on there, when you have to see the whites of their eyes, and you're not the first one I've ever done this with, by the way, that's simply how you get impressions on YouTube right now.
He has absolutely no shame and wussies out anytime he's confronted.
Again, I think a lot of people, when they watch that, they think that I was making a hit piece or an attack piece on you. So it's more of like an illustration rather than like, oh, I'm going to take you down.
So when I say, the bigger the hoop, the bigger the hope. Hoop earrings, duly noted. Thank you very much. So if I do hashtag hoop earrings, there you go.
He's a tough guy until a woman confronts him. That's not very high value alpha male of him.
But like before we jump in here, it's like my point is not like to destroy Lauren Southern, but it's just to sort of clear the air. And I try not to anyways make it a personal attack, but that doesn't mean that everybody in the chat isn't like, oh man, she looks like a 12-year-old boy.
Mr. I don't try to do personal attacks proceeds to tweet that live streamer Destiny and Lauren have a love child. What is the evidence based on? Well, George did a live stream where he reads the email of Lauren Southern's ex-husband, but take notice how George provides no evidence, especially on his claim about Lauren Southern being pregnant.
Destiny was her ticket to getting back in the YouTuber game. I had received information that they were hanging out a lot when her U.S. travel ban was lifted. They started sleeping with each other as he is in some kind of relationship like that. Lauren then got pregnant, and it was a girl. They just started formalizing the relationship as I guess there's a kid involved.
He's clearly okay with doing personal attacks. He just doesn't want to take the responsibility for it.
There's your third party. I'm the messenger. Don't shoot the messenger. I just work here, man.
And this is the same guy that gets uppity about holding modern women accountable.
When you're making an example of people, or when you are holding women accountable, or you're having a debate with somebody.
But when it's time for him to be held accountable, he just does the cop out. Well, I just work here.
I know. I just work here, man. I'm just reporting the news. I report, you decide.
His hands are clean. Meanwhile, he's getting giddy like a teenage girl about to gossip at the lunch table.
Yeah, what's the point in being all discreet? Well, we're not. We're gonna end that streak right now. Okay. You guys ready for your bombshell? Here's your bombshell.
Speaking of personal attacks, there was a debate between the live streamers Destiny, who we mentioned earlier, Sneeko versus George, and George could not define what a high-value man was, despite his entire Red Pill brand being centered around it. It all revolves around this tweet that George made that lists the steps on how to become a high-value male, one of which includes getting a vasectomy, which is why Destiny responds to Rollo saying that with this.
What if your definition of a high-value man is being getting into a trade and having 5 kids by the time you're 22?
You
guys...
One
of the tweet was, you've got some conception of a high-value man. Here are 8 points that you think you need to do to get to it. And now you're getting blown the fuck up on the vasectomy thing, which you probably realize is fucking retarded. But you're too old and stubborn to walk back from it. That's the point of this conversation.
I'm not too stubborn.
When asked what he defines as a high-value male, he proceeds to dodge the question.
It's like grandpa telling like stories from Vietnam. Like, just say, what is a high-value man? It's the first part of the tweet. What does that mean?
You tell me what a high-value man is. Okay, because here's the thing: is it doesn't matter what I'm going to say is a high-value man. You guys are fucking
because it's your tweet.
It doesn't matter what I say is a high value man.
You gave a list of 8 things. Do these 8 things to become a high value man. Do 1 through 8 to become A. And you're not defining what A
The
is.
fastest way to becoming a high value man is these things.
What is that? What is a high value man?
We can't have an argument if I don't even know what your definition
Point is the very fact that you're even asking this in the first place is the actual point of the fucking tweet. Okay.
When you ask him to defend his position on a basic level, he has no argument, and instead he gets emotional and launches insults and basically has a melty.
Because the point of it was to get douche nozzles like yourself to have this conversation in the first place.
How old are you, bro? Douche nozzles?
You guys are idiots.
I thought he wasn't like those other red pill guys.
And that sensationalism, that sells. You know what doesn't sell? When you're trying to intellectually break it down. I just want somebody to go, yeah, get her, Kevin Samuels. Tell her she's average at best. That's all sizzle. That's no steak. That's no substance. If I'm going to break it down, it's not just red meat. It's also the meat, right? It's sizzle and steak rather than just selling the sizzle.
Those other red pill guys sell sizzle. I sell steak.
But it did have me and then Kill to Party next to that.
Surely his moral superiority is the reason for his lack of success that he loves to complain about.
That's out of my 4th book, which nobody seems to want to read.
I've been doing this for 20 freaking years.
And just like those other red pill guys, he also likes to promote non-committal relationships as well as hookup culture.
And you better take care of your kids, Buster, because that's what a real man does. You better look like this guy on the right side right there. That's your responsibility. That's why men exist. This is your purpose for being, right? You know what's funny? I can make the case for both of these. Your purpose for being is to have a commitment to yourself like Dan Bilzerian, to be the best version of yourself for yourself versus the best version of yourself to save the West, to please God, to please your wife. Because if mama ain't happy, God ain't happy.
Just do what feels good, queen. Don't let no man tell you.
Casual sex. Feminism has influenced that in some way.
Sleep with who you want. They can't slut shame you, queen. That's a lot of male empowerment.
And the pregnancy test, you could say, oh, this is a flex. No, that's her insurance policy, because that's insurance to keep you around. And if you believe it, that's even that much better. If you gaslit yourself into thinking that that's a flex.
You know, after hearing him call children just an insurance policy to hold men hostage, you really wouldn't think that he's been married for 26 years with a daughter. As a father with a daughter, it's really surprising how much he encourages men to rack up women's body counts, considering that this could be his daughter that some guy does this to. If you sleep with guys on the first night, well, now you're racking up your body count and you're not worth marrying.
From a statistical standpoint right now, when women get to be, past 31 or 32 years old, and they're looking for and complaining about why they can't find the right guy or the nice guy, that is the guy that is the quote unquote boyfriend material. That's the guy that they wanted to settle down with. That's not the guy that they wanted to have, hot fun sex with when they were in their crazy college years, and now they're ready to get serious.
But if you don't sleep with that high value alpha male on the first night, well, now you lost them and it's your fault.
Clearly he makes a lot of money. Clearly he's jacked. Clearly he's an ideal guy that I would really like to get with. He's not going to say, okay, well, if you don't want to have sex with me, that conversation doesn't happen. He just doesn't talk to you anymore. You're pushed out and another girl comes in.
Does he tell his daughter to sleep with men as soon as she meets them and then blame her for it too? George is encouraging a no-win scenario where you're damned if you do, damned if you don't.
Men being responsible for their families, yes. Responsibility is very important for men.
He preaches about responsibility for men being good, but as soon as push comes to shove, that sentiment is nowhere to be found.
When you're talking about a society that prioritizes the sexual strategies of women above that of men, is it men's responsibility for that? Or should those guys say, no, I'm not gonna settle down with you. I don't have any obligation to marry you. I don't have any obligation to give you any kind of commitment, because your sexual strategy from the time you were, say, 18 till about 28 years old had nothing to do with planning for the long term.
Aren't you making men weaker by babying them and taking all of their responsibility away? In case you're wondering what George's response to that sentiment is, basically he never addresses the counter arguments that Lauren made in that debate and instead goes on a long-winded spiel like it's your grandfather telling an old story about women and hypergamy.
There are two people that are having sex and they are both responsible.
So what they're doing is they're looking for a guy who is at their level or above their level.
He does not address the argument arguments because he doesn't know how to. He just knows how to respond with his pre-written NPC lines that he regurgitates over and over.
When you talk about hypergamy, it's alpha seed and beta need. It's not that every woman will, it's that any woman can.
I literally feel like he's an NPC in a video game and I'm clicking A as he does his lines. Alpha seed, beta need, beta bucks, alpha fuck. It's not that a woman will, it's that a woman can. His hypergamy spiel about 80% of women only being intimate with 20% of men. It really reminds me of feminists saying that the body standards are too high.
It's what we call the 80-20 rule, okay? 80% of guys, and I can show you this statistically through, there's a great book called Dataclism. I'm not sure if you're familiar with it, but statistically speaking, women do not want to have anything. They find 80%, sometimes 85% of men unattractive.
Speaking of which, like a woke feminist, George misled people on that data about women only doing 20% of men. This study isn't even online anymore. It was deleted and it's like 15 years old. The study is so old that we didn't even have filters back then like that, and dating apps weren't really that common. The conclusion he drew from this irrelevant data of women only swiping on omega alphas is really misleading.
Women who were like rated a 5 out of 10 were far more likely to message another 5 out of 10 than a man who was a 5 out of 10 was to message a 5 out of 10. So when it came to actual contact, which I think is the important aspect, the majority of men were more likely to actually message and engage with the 1% of women. Whereas women may have rated men lower, but they were more likely to engage with the men that were in the lower categories.
That debate was from around 2 years ago, and he still uses that statistic.
Getting back to the 80%ers and the 20%ers, the majority of the greatest inventions and innovations, they were created by the guys who are in the 80% trying to find a way out.
And he does it in a way to demonize women.
Woman's sexual strategy so that she's looking for the guy who has that provisioning capability, but he also still has to be hot. And he also still has to be virile. He also has to have good testosterone levels, and he's got to be taller, and he's got to have the six-pack abs.
As if men wouldn't also be intimate with hotter women if they could over an average one. If there's one thing that I agree with George on, it's that furthering the divide between men and women is not conducive for a healthy, functioning society.
Women need a man like a fish needs a bicycle, right? We've been hearing that since the 70s. And for guys on the opposite side, it's the juice ain't worth the squeeze.
Right.
Well, that's not how you form a cohesive society. That's not how you form families.
And George's ideology is not conducive for that healthy society. It encourages people to do hookup culture, which is the opposite of forming families. And it encourages being helpless and blaming the other gender. The red pill ideology in general is very dehumanizing. It doesn't cultivate a healthy outlook on dating. It's very much like a cult. You have the old guy figurehead selling himself as a high value male for his followers to worship him. In cults, they have in-group terminology, kind of like how the manosphere does. And in cults, they'll have you sacrifice your life savings if that's what it takes to contribute. This reminds me of Jack Murphy's program, the Liminal Order, Andrew Tate's pyramid scheme. If you question them or their ideology, they label you as a traitor or feminist and revoke your membership.
The new sort of anti-red pill rhetoric that's going on by the same guys who made a damn good living off of it for the last 2 years, duly noticed and duly noted. Your names are now in the book. We know who's for real and who's about this and who's not right now. So when all this is over, when the election cycle is done, and you want to come back to the manosphere,
and skepticism is not allowed. Are you a male feminist or something?
you're basically a male feminist right now, guys. You're a disgrace to the manosphere. Give me their badge. Turn to your man.
They isolate you and get mad if you have a spouse because you're betraying the cause and siding with women.
If I go and I say, hey, I've been married for 25 years, people go, well, don't listen to anything he has to say. He can't possibly be red pill. He's been married for 25 years.
The red pill manosphere ideology is sold as being the solution for men's problems.
For every guy that's out there that seems like really messed up and really like hates women, and I understand why that is, because a lot of guys right now see the manosphere or see the red pill as sort of their validation for why their lives are so fucked up.
And they give you a rebirth, so to speak, in cults, just like George here is saying that he is saving lives.
You know, literally come out to conventions and talks that I've given just so that they could tell me that, you know, they had a a plan to kill themselves. They'd actually set a date to kill themselves and then canceled that date because they read my first book and they go, it all became very clear. Now I understand what's going on. And now I realize that I have accurate information and I can sort of rebuild my life according to that accurate information right now.
Sometimes even on YouTube or Twitter. Ludwig, you saved my life. No, I didn't save your life. What do you mean I saved your life? I've been playing Pokemon and Among Us and Minecraft. All I did was play games, and you used me as a distraction to maybe get through a bad period or whatever it was. But you did it. You used me. You could have used anything. So stop giving me the credit that you deserve for doing all the work. I don't know you. How can I save you? Come on, think about it.
Joining this cult is like entering the crab bucket. You try to crawl out and they drag you right back down to their level so that you can suffer together. Just as the red pill dehumanizes women and paints them as evil, women in response will see that and assume that all guys are like these guys in the red pill manosphere. The red pill is encouraging not only for men to hate women, but also for women to hate men.
I've said this before, it's like the red pill doesn't exist so that men will hate women. It exists so men won't hate women for what they can never be to them. Sometimes that's hard. Sometimes there's resentment.
As much as George says that the red pill does not make men hate women, it has done a fantastic job at wedging the divide between them and turning men into the feminists that they hate. If you guys enjoyed this video, don't forget to like it, subscribe, and leave a comment, and maybe if you're feeling generous, share the video as well. This video took a long time to research, and after watching all of this, it really does make me sad to see that men genuinely are becoming jaded from this movement, and I hope that this video brings some light to that. Also follow my social media, it's in the description, and don't forget to pick up some soap. Use code PINKOUT. Bye bye.
80%, at least 80% of guys do not have that authority. They have no say whatsoever.
If you want women to set the rules, then we can have that gynocentric world. That's fine. But if you guys want to do this whole we're alpha, we run the world, we need to get out of this gynocentrism, then maybe you do need to take that mind if I am my sister's keeper. Step up, take that responsibility, because there's a whole lot of talking about how we want men to run the world, and then a whole lot of complaining about, oh man, well then we have to do all the work. Well, yeah.